Hi, welcome to After Today, the Prophecy of Tomorrow. Today we're going to be looking at something that's going to be in the news fairly soon, and maybe already has been a little bit. It's about the Third Temple, the Third Temple of Israel. Now, in the past there has been two temples from Israel. The first was built in 957 BC. That was destroyed in 586 BC. The second temple was erected in 515 BC. It was destroyed in 70 AD. So ever since Israel has become a nation, they've been planning on building the third temple. And they do not believe that Christ came and died for their sins and was buried and resurrected as their final sacrifice. They do not believe that, so they want to reenact the temple sacrifices and erect another temple. And they've been planning to do this ever since they became a nation in 1948. Now, we know there's going to be a third temple because the Bible talks about the Antichrist walking into the third temple and sitting down and proclaiming himself to be God. We see this in 2 Thessalonians 2:4. It says, "Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." So this is definitely going to be something that's going to be happening in the future, and we're already seeing some ramifications of things that surround that. One of the things that Israel needs to do to get their third temple going and to purify their people is they need to sacrifice a pure red heifer, or a cow, that's without blemish, 2 years old, and has never had a yoke put upon it. Now, they've been looking for pure red heifers for many, many years, and they keep finding them, but they find blemishes in them. Well, they recently found 5 of them in Texas, and they have all 5 of them. And as a matter of fact, the the Islamic nation, and the Muslims know about this. And they're afraid about this because they think that if they sacrifice these red heifers, that they're going to do it on the Dome of the Rock or in the place of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So I've heard many news stories that this was the reason that they killed several hundred Israelis in October 7th of 2023. A lot of news feeds say that this was the reason for the attack, that they knew that they were going to sometime sacrifice this red heifer. And it was in the news that they were going to probably do it during Passover of 2024. So this is causing a major uproar in the Islamic community. Again, look, you can look in the news. You can see several stories about the fact that Israel may have been planning to sacrifice a red heifer in Passover 2024. Don't know if this was true or not. I've heard stories to the contrary, but this would cause an uproar in the Middle East for sure. So that being said, Israel is planning on building a third temple. The red heifer would be used to, the ashes of the red heifer would purify the site for the build, and will also purify the people. That's the reason for it. And they can't build until they find and sacrifice this red heifer. And they think they found one. Now, there will be peace in the Middle East temporarily in the future. And this has already started with the Abraham Accords. This is something that President Trump set up in 2020. The nations already involved in it are Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, and Sudan. Egypt previously had an agreement with Israel in 1979, and Jordan in 1994. So there's many nations involved in this, and this is all about having peace with Israel. Matter of fact, here is the Abraham Accords Declaration. It says, "We, the undersigned, recognize the importance of maintaining and strengthening peace in the Middle East and around the world based on mutual understanding and coexistence, as well as respect for human dignity and freedom, including religious freedom. That is the edict of the Abraham Accords. So there will be a 7-year peace agreement, and it will probably be as a result of either an existing war or a future war. Most peace agreements come after war. The agreement with Egypt came after the Yom Kippur War in 1974. So a lot of the things that happened in World War II, all the agreements and the setting up of NATO and everything happened as a result of World War II. Now, one of the signers of this agreement, or who will confirm this agreement, is going to be the Antichrist. It says he will confirm the covenant. Daniel 9:27 talks about it. He says, he shall confirm the covenant with many for a week of years, 7 years. It says he will confirm the covenant with many. So it's going to be many nations coming into agreement to work and to live peacefully alongside Israel. So the temple, in my opinion, will be rebuilt as part of this agreement. And why do I say that? Well, let's take a look at what Revelation 11:1 and 2 says. It says, there was given me a reed like unto a rod. This is John talking. And the angel stood, saying, rise, measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. So I think there's going to be some sort of a sharing arrangement made near the Dome of the Rock, or near the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This will be part of a 7-year peace agreement. Of course, nothing's in the Middle East is going to last forever. And that's why this is not going to be a permanent peace agreement. It's going to be a 7-year trial agreement. But it will come as a result, I believe, of some sort of future or present war. Matter of fact, the Jews have already been planning for this since 1948. Matter of fact, they have all of the temple furnishings ready right now. In fact, the furnishings, the instruments, the vessels, everything they need, the priest garments is ready. And they're on display at the Holy Temple Visitor Center in Jerusalem. And so these are made already. They're just waiting for the site, waiting for the build. They've already got the plans. They've already got a miniature scale model of the new temple. Now, this is going to be built, and halfway through this 7-year peace agreement, the Antichrist is going to go in, sit in the temple, and claim he's God. It says in Daniel 8:11, he magnified himself to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. In Daniel 11:31, the arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. You heard of this term, the abomination of desolation. This is where the Antichrist, after he takes power, there's going to be great peace and great prosperity in the world for the first half of this 7-year agreement. And then, I believe the Antichrist is going to be, someone's going to figure out who he is. I think he's going to be, in my opinion, he's going to be assassinated. He's going to come back to life. Then he's going to go and sit in the temple, and he's going to say, look, you saw me come back to life. I'm God. And to further prove that, I'm going to take the sacrifice that your God has not been taking. In the Old Testament, the sacrifice was proven to be good and acceptable to God if he brought fire down from heaven and took the sacrifice and licked up the blood off the altar that the priest would put there. Well, that's not going to happen when they reinitiate the temple sacrifice, because God doesn't take those sacrifices anymore. So they're going to keep doing their business, but God's never going to accept it. He's going to come in the temple, sit down, and say, look, I'm God, here, I'm going to prove it, I'll take the sacrifice. It says he will have power to bring fire down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. So this is one of the reasons they're going to believe him. Revelation 3:10 talks about this hour of temptation that shall come upon the whole world. That's not talking about the tribulation. It's talking about that moment where he sits in the temple and brings fire down from heaven. Who's not going to believe? Somebody who's resurrected from the dead, claims he's God, and brings fire down from heaven. Who's not going to believe? That's going to happen in the temple halfway through the tribulation period. Well, when is this going to happen? Well, the Bible gives us hints as to when this is going to happen. And it gives us a big clue in Luke 21:20. It says, "When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." So, right before this happens, he's going to bring hordes of his armies around Jerusalem. And when you see that happen, you know it's close. So, after that, there's going to be another Jewish Holocaust. He's going to go after the Jews right away. After they see this, some of the Jews are going to believe, but a lot of them won't because they will have been warned. And then he's going to persecute Christians and Jewish people. It says in Revelation 12:13, "When the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth a man-child." Talking about Satan and Israel. It says, "And the woman fled into the wilderness," Revelation 12:6, "where she hath a place prepared of God, and they shall feed her there 1,260 days." That's 3.5 years. The last 3.5 years of the 7-year agreement and the start of the Great Tribulation period. So why is Israel on the run here? Well, Christ predicted this in Matthew 24. He says in verse 15 through 21, it says, "When ye therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains." Judea is in the area of the West Bank, where all this turmoil is happening now. "Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Now I will let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes." This is going to be an immediate thing. There's going to be immediate persecution. Matthew 24:21, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be." So these Jews there's a lot of Jewish people in the West Bank, and a lot of Jewish people in the areas that are given to the Muslim people. They're still living there. Well, when this happens, they're going to be kicked out and persecuted immediately. So Christ says, this is going to happen, run to the mountains. We're going to give that term, abomination, desolation, that's basically means that when he sits in the temple, that is such an abomination, and it will cause the temple to therefore be desolate for thereafter. No activity will ever happen in the temple after he does this. So it's the abomination that causeth desolation. Israel's going to be scattered, and they will have protection from the U.S., I believe. Revelation 12:14. "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she shall be nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent." It's talking about Satan the serpent. So the United States in Bible prophecy is represented by an eagle. You see this in Daniel chapter 7 and in other places. And in Revelation, it talks of an eagle in a couple different places, talking about, I believe, the U.S. The symbols that they used in the Old Testament for countries, like the bear for Russia, leopard for Germany, the lion for Great Britain, all have those symbols as their national symbol now. So these last 3.5 years will be the worst time on the face of the earth. So he's going to be persecuting the Jews and Christians during that last 3.5 years. But none of this stuff can happen until the temple's here, built, and they're resuming their animal sacrifice. There's plenty of places you can go online to look about the Jewish temple that tell you the progress that they're making, what they have going on, and what's going to happen in the future. They're just waiting for the site, waiting for something to happen that will allow them to build their third temple. So I hope this clears some things up for you guys who are wondering about the third temple. And again, I appreciate your time at After Today, the Prophecy of Tomorrow.